Hello. I want to share with you some interesting things about string formatting and Debug.Log statements that you will probably find useful all the time in Unity development. So I have a Mahjong solitaire game, and I can select tiles and they will disappear as is the game. My input and hovers are a little messed up because I offset the tiles visually as they're on top of each other as they stack, but I'm not checking for that on my mouse and hover and clicking scripts. But ignoring that problem, I want every time to match a tile, I want to spit out it in the console. So it's very simple. I just have to go find the place in my code where when a match happens, I can Debug.Log array spit something out. This select tile happens when every time I click on a tile, it will tell I will select something, or if I already have something selected, I will attempt to see if the two things, the second thing I clicked on matches the first thing I had selected. So we'll click on a tile. Hooray! Great. But that's not very useful. I want to find out what the actual thing was that I matched. So just with the Debug.Log statement, a tile was matched, and then I can use the plus operator. Plus onto strings, whatever variable I want. If this variable can be turned into a string, which isn't always true, sometimes it'll just be like an object. But if this variable can be turned into a string, which the name of a scriptable object can, or it already is, then I can just append that to the end of this string already. So I just use that plus, and it won't do in math, it won't do addition, it'll just take these characters and those characters and it'll stick them together and make one larger string. So here I can match two tiles. A tile was matched, opinion 13. And then let me match these flowers. Okay, great. Huzzah. So, useful, nice, great. We do this all the time. Turns out it can be kind of annoying. Let's say I have plus 2 times 2. I want to, figure out what this math is, right? In this particular example, it doesn't make any sense, but, maybe I'm working with vectors and I'm trying to figure out my x's and y's and I'm doing something weird with like physics. Like this happens all the time. You got to do a little bit of quick math in your Debug.Log statements. So what would actually happen here? Well, PEMDAS would apply, so it would do the multiplication operator first, and then addition would apply, and it would go in order. So math plus 2 would turn this into a string, and it would combine those together. And then it would turn this into a string, and it would combine those together. And you would get math 24. And math, right, that's actually not how math works. So to get out of that, you would have to use some parentheses to fix your PEMDAS so that all the math happens and then it gets added. But that gets complicated. It gets weird and it's easy to make mistakes and bugs, especially if these aren't numbers but they're variables. And it's kind of hard to keep track of things. So there's another way to do Debug.Log string formatting, which is very nice. And that's using something called Debug.Log format. Debug.Log format is a shortcut into the string format function, which inside of this it works the same way. So this creates a string using the trick I'm about to tell you, and Debug.Log format uses that trick, spits it into the console. What's the trick? The trick is it will take the first argument, it will take a string, and then every argument after that, it will allow you to place it into the string using a special little code. So we selected the curly brace 0, curly brace tile. I should say we matched. So we matched the 0 tile. So 0, we start counting at 0 because we're programmers. And then here the first additional argument after the string would be that. If I wanted something else, I could do something like, I don't know, m.executed. It is 1. It is true or false that we matched. That'll always be true because I'm inside of this if statement. Not important. But 2 arguments here. we match the first, this and 1, 2, 3, 4, and these don't need to be in order, and you can use them more than once, and you can do fancy things like that. But wherever it's 0, it'll insert this as a string. Wherever it says 1, it'll insert the second one as a string, 2, 3, 4, so on. So let's test that out. We matched the Pinion 3 tile. It is true that we matched. Hooray! And that's pretty nice, but it also can get kind of confusing because I have to remember 0 is what, 1 is what, 2 is what, 3 is what. So if you have just one variable that you're spitting into the console with log format, super convenient. It makes things like having to do math and having to match it all up, makes that much easier, much clearer. Love to use this. But there's a shortcut way that you might find easier to read, which is called interpolated strings. And this is something just part of the string features, not part of the Debug.Log class. You can use this anywhere. And that's by using a $sign before your string. Let me just make a little variable here. A $sign before your string, and then anywhere we type, just like before, we do whatever we were doing. And then a mustache, and then instead of a 0, you can just put the variable right in there, inside of those mustaches, and keep the string going. So let's put this inside of a Debug.Log. Yeah. So this is nice because it's easy to read, just like using the plus operators. We match the select the tile's faces name tile, and you can figure it out. But you don't have all that confusion, like here, writer, it knows about this, it's giving me the color syntax correctly. So a little $sign means this is great. But if you want to use the actual curly brace, like that's going to mess you up. You have to use 2 of them, and that will escape, and it'll show 1 of them. So, yeah. So. I love using this. This is my favorite way to use the Debug.Log if I'm having strings with variables inside of them. I find it very convenient. One of the reasons I find it convenient is because it allows me to use the context part of the Debug.Log statement, which, if you don't know, super useful thing, is you can include a second argument to a Debug.Log statement. Often it is the word this, which is any Unity object, any mono behavior, component or game object or scriptable object or whatever. Let's actually give it selected object interface. And that will, it says it's context, right? So if you have like 50 enemies on the screen and one of them, every time one of them is like shoots a weapon, you want to spit out a message because you're trying to figure out which enemies are doing some wrong behavior. You might give the Debug.Log statement, and then you might, tell them to use this as the context. And then in the code, in the game, when you click on the message, Unity will automatically go and select the relevant object that it is selected. So here you can see the faces here actually got highlighted. So let's select another one. So it's actually telling me which, it's highlighting where see how that faces lights up? It's highlighting where the thing is. So that's gave it a scriptable object. If we give it the word this, that refers to the particular mono behavior, the component that the code is running on. So it'll highlight the game object over in the hierarchy. And this is my standard game manager. So we keep an eye on that. Hold on, I have to actually match a tile here. There you go. So when I click on that, this is going to pop up orange. Click. Hey, there it is. Very useful. Double click will still bring me back to the code. So that little feature is really nice. That's something you can't do with a Debug.Log format, which is why I like using this ampersand feature, because it kind of gives me the best of all the worlds. I can read the code straight through. I can include my variables without having to do like quotation mark plus space quotation mark and all that junk. And I can have my context in my Debug.Log statements. So as far as Debug.Log statements go, this is like the full featured way to do it. And that's just like It's just a little thing that I think every Unity developer should know. I mean, we should know about breakpoints and debugging. So that's like definitely the next thing to learn about, is to never use Debug.Log statements again, because there are better ways. But if you're going to use Debug.Log statements, VR developers looking at you, or breakpoints will like freeze your VR headset. That's no good. Then knowing about all these features, it's good to know.